I just want you guys to know as we go through this, the format is very chill. So if you have questions, interrupt me, yell out, raise your hand, whatever works for you. But definitely, I want this to be interactive, and I want you to get all your questions answered, so it's not just me talking at you guys. But I always start this talk by discussing the qualities or characteristics of the sign in general, okay? Because I know we only have one Leo sun here, Miss Megan, but a lot of you might have Leo in your chart somewhere, even if it's not your sun sign. And secondarily, when we enter the season, this energy is all around us, kind of in the world, so we're soaking it up, even if we don't personally connect with a lot of those qualities, maybe in ourselves. But Leo this is going to be a great shift, you guys, because I was telling some of you before, we're coming out of Cancer season, the last 4 weeks, which Cancer they're all amazing signs. It's this deep, watery, intuitive, very feeling, emotional kind of sign. But sometimes Cancer energy can feel a little heavy, like we're just sitting in it. So I don't know if any of you have experienced any of that over the last month or so. We've also got 6 different planets in retrograde right now, which means that they appear to move backwards. In the night sky, they don't actually move backwards, but based on the revolutions around the sun, we get that little, or that appearance anyway. So yeah, it's been, I would say, a little bit of a tumultuous time lately, and I'm definitely feeling that on certain levels, and I know I've spoken with other people who are as well. So now, Tuesday, we moved into the sign of Leo, and the next month is going to be like this breath of fresh air. Hi, how are you, babe? So Leo is a fire sign. So we're coming out of water, emotional, and into like fiery, energetic. Leo, some traits associated with this sign are people know, like, they're very proud people, they're very loyal. People always think, oh, Leos, they love to be on stage, they love to perform. Some Leos do, but not all Leos. It's actually kind of a misnomer. Leos can either be pretty extroverted, or sometimes they can actually be kind of shy. Just depends on what side of the coin they're on. But Leo energy it's very energetic, it's very exuberant, it's very passionate. Leo is all about creativity. So I would say Taurus, Libra, Pisces, and Leo, those are probably the 4 most creative signs of the zodiac. If I had to choose, all signs are creative in their own way. But definitely Leo is all about like finding your passion, finding that thing that sparks you, that lights you on fire and gets you out there in the world. It's definitely more of an extroverted sign. Leos also, they're like very magnanimous. They want to be the king or the queen of their domain. They don't need to be recognized as the best of everything, but they want to be recognized for what it is that they do well. Leo season is also all about the heart. So it's about living from your heart and doing things that make your heart happy, what brings you joy, all those kinds of things. And we're going to touch on a few of those as we go into some different aspects of this season too. But yes, very expressive. Now Leo, I talk about 2 sides to every coin, right? Every sign has positive characteristics. When we're feeling good, we portray our best traits, right? Sometimes when we're feeling a little not fully in our power or not totally centered, we can get a little off track. And so sometimes you might have heard things associated with Leo might be, especially if your Mercury is in the sign of Leo, like a little opinionated, read bossy, very, very strong-willed. Leo is a fixed sign. So there's 3 different types of signs. We won't go into all those right now, but fixed is exactly like you would think it is. Like, I'm set here down in my ways, and I'm immovable, not totally immovable, but so I think sometimes Leos need to be careful of, like, they can have these great, really amazing creative ideas, and they can be in the flow. They're excellent leaders as well. They definitely have those leadership qualities, but then they need to be careful not to get too stuck in, like, my idea is the best and only and right idea. And we all get a little bit of that sometimes, but Leos can be a little more prone to that when they are not always remembering to share the limelight with everyone around them. So that's something else to kind of look out for. And then the drama. I think people always think, oh, Leos are so dramatic. They can be, but that can be in a really positive way. Like, sometimes the drama is hilarious, right? And it gets people excited, it gets people out and going. Leo is like the person who's like, come on, let's go dancing, dress up, we're ready to go. You know, it's that kind of exuberant energy that they're like, I'm ready to just get out there and do it. And that is going to be a really nice change when we think kind of holistically from the last 4 weeks into the next 4 weeks. So I think everybody's probably pretty excited for that. I know I'm very excited for that. Every zodiac sign also rules a different part of the body. So Leo happens to rule, unsurprisingly, the heart organ, as well as the upper spine. So kind of that area behind the back. So the 2 things we were focusing on in that beginning breath work there, just kind of breathing into and opening up that space, because when that space is clearer, we're going to be able to live a little bit more fully from our heart, whatever that means for each one of us. So if you are a stretcher or a yoga practitioner, great thing to do over the next 4 weeks is really focus your efforts on spinal flexion and extension. So there's a lot of different poses that get at that. If you're a yoga practitioner, I'm just going to give these examples because I teach yoga, so that's what comes to mind for me. But if we think about cow and cat pose, a lot of us have done that on our hands and knees. You can also do it seated, inhaling into the front of the heart, exhaling and rounding. If you do puppy pose, it's kind of like a child's pose, except instead of sitting your seat back towards your heels, you kind of keep your butt lifted and you stretch the arms out long and bring your heart to the ground. That feels really nice. Sphinx pose, camel pose, any of those. But just as you're doing, either practicing in a studio, if you have your home practice, or you just do some movement and stretching and shaking at home, which is also awesome, try to think about like what can kind of open up the front of that space and the back of that space. And definitely focusing on that over the next 4 weeks will be a really nice way to open yourself up and kind of help yourself move in the flow of this nice, fun Leo energy. But when we think about transitioning from those general characteristics of Leo into like, okay, what does that mean for the next 4 weeks that we should all be focusing on if we don't have any Leo in our charts, or even if we do? And so the first thing is soaking up the summer fun. I know a lot of times we hit that end of July, and I'm guilty of it too, and I'm like, oh my God, the summer's over. It's actually not over till September 21st, so there's a lot of summer left to enjoy. We just get stuck on that academic school schedule, and I feel like we can't ever really get off that. And then especially if we have kids now too, then you're right back on it. But it's all about, yes, what brings you joy? What makes you laugh? What, when you do it, you're like, God, I just love this so much. I'm so in the flow. I'm not thinking about anything else. Like, it is time to let yourself go out and enjoy and reconnect with whatever that is for you. So I want everyone to close their eyes for just a second. And if I asked you, what is something when you're doing it that totally lights you up? Like you feel so free and joyful, and maybe it makes you laugh. I want you to just take a second here to think. What is one of those things for you? And I love it. Then we start to see little smiles on the faces. You can't see, your eyes are closed, but I can see. All right. So go ahead and open your eyes. And if nothing came to mind right at this moment, that's okay. Maybe that's something for you to think about then as you leave here tonight and head into the rest of the season. But whatever it is that did just come to your mind, go and do it. No excuses. You've got 4 weeks, okay? So yes, more joy, more fun, more taking advantage of all the fruits of the summer, both physically and metaphorically speaking. Another thing too is Leo season is definitely about, it's much more extroverted than Cancer season. So it doesn't mean that then all of a sudden you're out all the time, 24/7 socializing, but if you felt like you've been a little reclusive or more home-centered over the last month, maybe it is time to call up those friends that you haven't seen in a few weeks and plan something fun to do. Just kind of get out and socialize and be amongst the people. It's definitely a great time to kind of re-enter that space. It's also a really great time for like romance and passion. You know, we think of that like Leo drama and think of that in a passionate sense, and that doesn't necessarily have to mean like romance with another person or a partner. It can certainly, but it can also be with yourself. Like Leo is all about love. Leos totally love so hard. They love themselves and they love whoever's kind of in their inner circle. So I want you to think about, are you giving yourself enough love? Is that a department in which you might be lacking of late? Most of us are probably guilty of that most of the time. So how can you focus on cultivating more of that self-love? I think doing the things that make you super joyful and make you laugh will be part of that. But also, you know, if you do have a partner, if you're looking for a partner, it's like, get out there and show your stuff. That's what Leo season's all about. So like kind of embody that idea of romance, of passion. Just send those vibes out into the world. Even if it's only for yourself, that's the best and first person that you should be doing that for anyways, right? So yes, definitely a good time this season to be focusing on that. Since it is connected to the heart, if you are a meditator or a deep thinker or a nature walker, whatever the thing is for you, where you kind of have like your own time and quiet space, maybe you're a journaler, I want you to really think about how has your heart been feeling lately? And I think, you know, sometimes we go around with all these different emotions and our emotions change day by day, and that's all totally normal. But sometimes we are carrying around stuff that is heavy, you know, whether it be grief and sadness, or, you know, a long-standing fear, or just this, a feeling of loss. You know, it could be really great things too. You could check in with your heart and be like, oh my God, I'm feeling so awesome, which that's great. But yeah, I want you to spend a little time in whatever it is for you, meditation, journaling, nature walking, etc. And I want you to really kind of focus on reconnecting with this space, like asking yourself the question, how is my heart feeling? And then not being like, what's the answer, but just letting yourself sit with that. Maybe you do that once a day, maybe you do it twice a week, whatever you think is manageable for you. But I want you to start to get a lot more in tune with what's happening here versus what's happening here, if that makes sense. So Leo season, good time for that. And then the fourth major point that I have for this season that I want you all to be doing, or that I challenge you to do over the next 4 weeks, is what are your passion projects? Where are you showing your creativity and doing it, living it out in the world? Because I think so often, you know, hopefully your job is something that would spark that, like a place where you can bring creativity and something you're passionate about. But I know that's not always the case for every one of us. So if it's not the thing that you're doing 40 hours a week, what else is it? Is it a hobby that you have? Is it a practice that you do? Are you an artist in some way, shape, or form? You know, there's a lot of ways for us to bring creativity into our lives, and it just makes things a lot more fun. So I think the more you can direct your energy into those types of activities, the more you're going to open your heart up to call in more and more of that same type of feeling, right? It just kind of, it'll be like a snowball effect. Once you get rolling on it, you're like, oh my God, this made me so happy. Why wasn't I doing this before? But it's okay. We all get a little wayward here, especially 6 months into the year. So yeah, those are really the 4 biggest things that I would suggest over the course of the next 4 weeks as like a background. Can you be focusing on that? Sound good? Any questions so far? Anyone deer in headlights yet? No. Okay, good. All right, so apart from those overarching things, then I usually like to focus in on, are there any other major astrological things happening? We always have a new moon and a full moon during every season, so we're going to talk about those in just a moment. And then, as I mentioned, we have 6 planets in retrograde right now, but come August, we're going to be, 2 of those will move forward, and we'll only be 4 retrograde, and that is going to feel really nice, so we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But the first thing that I want to mention is the new moon that we're going to have on July 31st, and it is in the sign of Leo. So whenever it's a new moon, it's always the same sign as the season that we're in. It's Leo season, we're going to have a Leo new moon. The full moon is always the opposite sign. So if it's Leo season, full moon's going to be in Aquarius. If it were Capricorn season, then the full moon would be in Cancer, etc., etc. So first things first, new moon in Leo, July 31st. So that's what, next Wednesday? Thursday? Next Wednesday. Yeah, so that's coming up here. And you guys know, we've talked a lot about this before, new moons are a time for planting the seeds. I want you to think about what are your intentions. You can have 80 of them, you can have 1. But it's something that you are going to really focus your thoughts on. I want to bring X, Y, or Z into my life. I'm going to do it. I tend to write those down because that holds me accountable. I also tell a lot of people because then I'm like, well, I told everyone I was going to do it, so I have to do it, okay? Hence, recording this. That was my July new moon solar eclipse intention. I'm like, I will record August session. So here I am doing it. So yes, but based on the energy that the new moon is in our case Leo, it can add some different elements to what it is you might want to focus your efforts and energy into with your intentions, your manifestations. So any of those qualities that we just talked about, how can I have more fun? How can I be more joyful? How can I be more creative in my day-to-day life? All of those things would be wonderful things to set intentions around if you can get a little bit more specific on how you might want to do that. But in addition to that, we have some really nice things happening with the planet Jupiter and this little asteroid called Chiron. They're both making a really nice connection to this new moon that we have in Leo. So Jupiter is all about expansion, luck, new opportunities. So perhaps the new moon could be a great time to make an intention about how do you want to expand yourself in your sphere. That might mean in your job, that might mean in your hobbies, it might mean in your social relationships, but anything that's gonna like open up your mind and introduce you to new stuff that's interesting that you've never really considered before, getting a little out of your comfort zone, all of that is great, like Jupiterian things. So the new moon could be an awesome time to think about how might you manifest some of that growth opportunity, expansion, opening yourself up. The connection that it makes to Chiron is all about our wounds, like our deep stuff that we work with throughout our lives, and how we heal that little by little as we age and we grow and we gain wisdom and all that good stuff. So this new moon could also be a wonderful time if you know that you have some healing that needs to happen. We all do, but if you're ready for that healing to happen, I should say, putting that in your intentions as well is a really great thing. So how can you kind of use this influence to say, you know, I've been through these experiences, but now I want to make an intention that I am going to do the work, go to the therapy, talk to a friend, X, Y, or Z million things that you could do to kind of work with that, whatever that wounding is for you. But it could be a really nice time to focus on that as well. Now, the one other caveat to that is on the same day that we have this new moon, next Wednesday, Mercury and Pluto are like opposite here in the sky. And that's really interesting. Mercury is all about how we think and communicate. Pluto is all about like really powerful, deep stuff. It can be about, you know, power and control in a negative sense or in a really positive sense. So the fact that these two are making this opposition tells us that our thoughts are going to be even more powerful on this new moon than they normally are. We all know that our thoughts create our reality, right? We've heard that before, but especially so at this time. So I'm going to ask you on that day, as you set your new moon intentions, like really, really hone in on only what you want. Don't leave any mental space for, I don't want this, that, and the other thing. Direct yourself very clearly and very purposely towards the things that you want to call in, because our thoughts are really going to take on an extra oomph with that Pluto thing happening to Mercury at that time as well. So just being aware of that, keeping them positive and focused on what it is that you want to call in. All right, so that's the first big thing. We have that next week. Now, a few weeks later, I think it's going to be August 15th. I will double check that though. We are going to have a full moon in the sign of Aquarius. So that's really interesting because full moons are about letting go. They're about the culmination of one cycle and the beginning of something new. So typically, we think of that as like a 4-week cycle, from one full moon to the next full moon. The last one that we had in July, a little more potent because it was an eclipse, so that lasts actually up to 6 months. So anything that happened around July 23rd, was that last week? Yeah. That stuff might continue to unfold for a few more months here. But at this new full moon, it's interesting to have this Aquarius Leo thing going on. Sun will be in Leo, moon will be in Aquarius. So it's definitely a time to, well, one of the things is to let go of being a rebel without a cause. So Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus it's the rebel. It wants to challenge. It's electric. It wants to shake things up and do things totally differently, which can be so awesome. But I would just encourage you to think about, are there places where you are being a rebel without a cause? And if so, can you find a cause and kind of direct your energies into that and kind of let go of this need to like shake it up just for the sake of shaking it up? Because that can be good sometimes, but it can be overdone other times. So that's one thing for our full moon. How can you throw your support to worthy causes, worthy groups, and really use your gifts and talents to serve them? And that's another part of it. You know, Leo is like, they love so much, but they also want to be recognized for what they're doing, and sometimes they can be a little focused internally versus externally, whereas the sign of Aquarius is much more about groups and networking and humanitarian causes and efforts. So when we have this full moon there, it's like, okay, where can we let go of that need for like me to shine? Not that you shouldn't work hard and that you can't be recognized and appreciated, certainly all those things, but that need of like filling yourself up through your accomplishments and achievements. How can you let go of some of that and start to turn the focus to, I'm such a talented and creative person, so how can I use those gifts to help and serve others? Is really a great way to focus this full moon energy that we'll have in mid-August. And then the last thing that I want you guys to think about at the full moon time is, you know, Leo about creativity, and Aquarius is definitely like eclectic and a very original thinker. Those are some cool traits of Aquarius. So how can you let go of any like fixed or stuck patterns of thought, Leo, fixed sign, and kind of move into that more like really creative, original thinking outside the box, problem solving in that way. So yeah, kind of letting go. Oh, this battery's low. It's gonna die now. Okay. All right, let's see. Well, we'll just get what we can get here.
Sorry, Mike.
Yes. No, it's fine. It's definitely gonna be better quality there too. Yeah. Any questions about that? The new moon or the full moon? Sorry, I didn't ask you after the new moon. No? We're so chill tonight, you guys. It's all good. I like it. All right. Now, the last major thing that I wanted to point out that is going to happen in this next month is the end of Mercury retrograde, which will be great. It's not that bad. I know, I'm being dramatic. Leo quality. But it is, yeah. Unless you wash your phone in the river, then it was really bad. So,
million things breaking. Everything's
everything. Yeah. So the good news is it ends August 12th. No, August 2nd. Sorry. Jupiter ends August 12th. So yeah, that's next Friday. So we're in the home stretch here. We've made it. So in addition to that, starting to move forward again, fewer communication issues, fewer technology issues, fewer things breaking down. We're going to kind of come back to our normal homeostasis on that stuff. But what's interesting is that Jupiter is one of those 6 retrograde planets right now. It is also going to turn direct on August 12th. So what's really cool is as both of those planets start to move forward, I think if you felt stuck over the last month and you're like, why is nothing moving forward? I'm working on these projects, nothing's being achieved. Like it just sometimes feels like setback after setback. As soon as Jupiter turns forward and they're both, it should be like you're off to the races. Like it's a big energy and I think you will definitely feel that shift. So it is a really great time to, if you've been stewing over anything in the past month, thinking, reviewing, getting your ducks in a row, now you're ready to like fire on all cylinders and make it happen. Like tap into that Leo fire and just do it. It's also, I feel like it could be really lucky in a way, especially with that Jupiter influence. So just like be aware, you might hear something, or you have a conversation with someone, something pops up like on Instagram or something like that. Just be aware with Mercury and Jupiter together, that can be kind of lucky things that happen or wishes, so to speak, that come true. And with Mercury being involved, it's something we hear or something we talk about. Or so just be aware. Once we hit that mid-August point, and we're going to have a full moon a couple days after that on the 15th, so there could be a lot that starts to move and shake and get rolling here. So that could be good. Anyone have stuff that they've been waiting on? Right? I know. So I think some more clarity will come after that time. It won't feel quite so heavy. One thing I wrote here though too, I was like, it can be like a stars align situation, but I also said, but be aware of that. Know what you are putting out there, because when the stars align, you want to make sure it's aligning to the thing that you really want and not the thing that you thought you wanted, but actually you don't really want. So again, that whole idea of being really clear and purposeful with our intentions. What is it that we want? Why do we want it? Do we want it because it's going to make our heart happy? Then go for it. Do we want it for any other reason other than that? Maybe we need to reevaluate why we're headed in that direction. And this last week of Mercury retrograde is the perfect time for that type of reevaluation. So yes, it could feel very lucky. And then Uranus is the only one of the outer planets that isn't retrograde right now, and it will go retrograde that same day that the Jupiter's turning direct. But all that means is that it could be a little shakeup, but I kind of think with the positive Jupiter-Mercury stuff happening, the shakeup could be something good. Like, again, you get that phone call, you hear something out of the blue, and you're like, oh, how about that idea? So just being aware. And then I wrote here, be big and bold like a lion, like Leo, after August 12th. Capiche? That's your time to go for it. After August 12th, I give you all the permission to do whatever it is that you want to do. Not that you can't do before, certainly, like, you know, the Mercury retrograde thing is, I never think that anything should be a hard and fast, you always do this or you never do this. You know, it's like, is it ideal to sign a contract during Mercury retrograde? No, it's not. But if you need a new place to live and you only have 2 days to sign the contract, well then that's that. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't live by that 100%, but if there's another option where I can delay it till after, I probably will, right? So that's why I think use this next time, week and a half, to finish getting your ducks in a row, and then whatever it is that sparks you, that brings you joy, this idea you have, something you want to get moving on, you can do it after August 12th. Yes? Sound good? Okay. So that's all I have for you. Leo season is not quite as heavy as Cancer season with all the eclipses and all the other things we had happening. So that's kind of the gist of tonight's info. But now, what questions do you have? Because I know some things might be brewing. We could stop the recording.